Good evening and welcome to week 6. We do have a few things we need to discuss after I have looked over the lesson plans that were submitted this week. So this week you are going to take the comments that I made on your lesson plans and correct them and submit them again next week. So that is your major assignment this week. So let's go over a few things first. In the Moodle site, you're going to see where you dropped your lesson plan. You're going to see a rubric. This is the rubric that I'm going to use next week to assess your grade. So you can see the different parts of the rubric and how they will be assessed with each point. What I usually do is I take and I highlight in yellow comments or things that need to be corrected in each section. What I have been doing for my own use, though, is whatever reading standard you have chosen, I have been putting it here in yellow so I can remember what standard needs to be taught throughout the lesson plan. I could tell that many did not read this week's news forum because lesson plans were not completed as I had hoped. Some did a great job, don't get me wrong, but the majority still have quite a few corrections to be made. It's important that you learn how to write the lesson plans in this course because in EDU 3040 you'll be writing 5 lesson plans. In this course you get 2 weeks. You get one for me to look it over, 2 the second week for you to rewrite and to make the corrections on how they should be written. Next course you will not get that. So this was the document that was attached to the week 5 news forum. And what I have done is I have taken your unit plan and your lesson plan and shown you how they fit together. So one of the things that you need to take mind is you need to remember that the lesson plan that you are currently writing will take place in one day in a 90 to 20 minute reading block. So you need to make sure that every section of the lesson plan is complete. When we get down here to the teaching activities, I'll show you those in a minute. These are the parts that I really look at to make sure that they're teaching the standard that's listed. So let's go back to, nope, not that. What I had put in the news form for week 5. So I ask you to take one of the objectives from your unit plan, and this is what you're going to base the lesson plan on. So when you write your lesson plan, the entire lesson plan is centered around one standard/objective. So you need to decide that first. So you're going to go back to your unit plan and copy and paste the standard. Like if you selected standard 1, then you're going to copy and paste standard 1 here. The ESOL strategies, this is not something that you put in your lesson plans. Please go. This website, many of you found isn't working. I posted a file under Moodle, under the course resources for this specifically. So go back when you're redoing your lesson plan and look for that file. This part is different than accommodations. So when you are doing the accommodations section, you already wrote these in your unit plan. So you copy and paste the accommodations for the same standard and objective. The purpose is why you're teaching this unit. It's what you're teaching. It's the standard. So if a lot of you this week chose teaching literal and non-literal words, some of you chose determining meaning of vocabulary words using context clues. Your purpose needs to be centered around the reading standard. The accommodations, like I said, copy and paste from your unit template. The objective, you already wrote the objectives for this standard. Copy and paste it from your unit plan. Copy and paste just this section of the unit outline in the template. So if you are doing section 1, objective 1, standard 1, then you just copy that part of the content outline right here. Copy and paste from the unit template. The assessment section, you have already created this in your unit plan. Copy and paste. There were many, many, many of you who did not include a summative and a formative. So that's something that you were supposed to go back and readdress before you submitted your unit template. So every single lesson plan has to have 2 assessments. One is the formative. The formative is what the students are doing while they are learning the skill. For instance, if you did context clues this week and you allowed the students to complete a graphic organizer on context clues, then the formative assessment would be the graphic organizer that they're using. The summative assessment is at the end of the lesson. The summative assessment is used to determine if the students mastered the skill. If you're using context clues or literal or non-literal, it's how you're going to determine if the students mastered the words and their definitions. Technical materials, that can be copy and pasted from the unit plan. Vocabulary words. The vocabulary words have to come from the Lorax. Okay, it's not content words, it's vocabulary words. So it says right here, and it says in the lesson plan, that you have to provide the word and the definition, especially if your standard is teaching multiple meaning words. No more than 10 words. You can expose children to many words in this book, but no more than 10 for mastery. Multiple intelligence, if it's on the unit plan or if it's on the lesson plan, copy and paste it. The anticipatory set. I'm going to keep going back to the standard that was used most in the papers that I've already graded. If you are allowing students to determine meanings of words through context clues, then in an anticipatory set, you need to introduce that skill. You could show a video. There's many videos on YouTube that describe what and how to use a context clue. There's also videos on literal and non-literal words. So this is how you are introducing the skill. Remember, everything in the lesson plan has to go back to teach the standard that was selected. The introduction. The introduction is how you're going to introduce the skill. I have a highlight right here. This section must be different from the anticipatory set. A lot of the lesson plans I read this week, the teacher is reading the story to the students in the anticipatory set, and then again it will say the teacher is reading the story in the introducing new knowledge. Is the teacher reading it twice back to back? And the other thought is, why is the teacher reading the text? These are 3rd grade students. They will not become better readers unless they practice reading the text themselves. So, in this part, if you used a video in the anticipatory set to introduce the skill, this is where the teacher is going to model and show students how to use context clues to determine meanings of words. So, authors can use 5 different ways to give meaning to words in a text. That's where you would introduce this. The teacher would model using 1 or 2 of the words that was selected for a vocabulary word and model how they would read around the word and get context clues to help determine it. The practicing section is where the students practice the skill. In the practicing section, just like it states, they are practicing. This is where you might have them work in a group, a small group with a shoulder partner. If you were doing context clues and you were doing the practicing section, this is where you might give or assign 2 or 3 more of the vocabulary words and let them practice in a group, determining the definitions by using context clues. The expanding section, this is where they have to do something independently. So if you notice, the introduction is where it's being introduced and the teacher models. The practicing is where they are practicing with a partner. The expanding is where they're practicing the same skill independently. And then the closure is where they would do the summative assessment. It's really pretty clear. One of the things I kept seeing over and over this week is students copying the words and the definitions from the board. That is not teaching. That is the students copying words from the board to their paper. Students do not learn copying from the board. They will be more concerned about letter formation, the order of the letters. It does not teach the students anything, and it certainly does not teach context clues. In today's classrooms, principals are very on tune to teaching the vocabulary words in context. That's why you have the students look in the book, find the word, read around the word, read the paragraph that the word is in, and then have the students determine a meaning from the words around it. Then, at the end of the expanding section, the teacher would make sure that the students all knew the correct definitions. Because, as we know, there are words with many multiple meanings. You have to make sure that the students have learned the correct definition. There are many great graphic organizers out there for context clues and literal and non-literal words. So, I gave an example. There are issues with the example. For instance, on this sample, the ESOL is not divided into the 5 separate sections. The purpose of this lesson is to teach students key vocabulary words. So if you go back up, let's check to make sure that matches the standard. Determine or clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases. So this one also includes multiple meaning words. So when I was going through this lesson plan, I would make sure that they were identifying meanings of unknown words and multiple meaning words. That's why you need to make sure that after the students have used context clues, they have come up with the correct definition. So the assessment section, there is a formative, it's labeled, and a summative. Be a fill in the blank, including 2 teacher-created open response. And that's not included either, so that needs to be included as well. If in the assessment you have a graphic organizer, it needs to be included. If you're having a quiz, if you're having discussion questions, you need to put those in here. Look, vocabulary words, word, and definition. So, we need to be a little bit more careful this week when we are correcting the lesson plans. So, when you see or get notification that I have assessed your lesson plan, please go back and look at the rubric and make sure that you take into consideration the corrections that I've put in yellow. And make sure that each of the teaching sections are based around the standard that is chosen. So let's go back and find a lesson plan template. All right, so make sure you pick the same standard. This is done in a file now. There's a file on the Moodle site under Course Resources at the top. Accommodations, copy and paste from your unit plan. Purpose statement, it has to match what the standard is at the top. Learning objective, this should have already been written in your unit. This comes from the unit outline already in your unit. Assessment, you need a formative and a summative. Make sure if you're given a quiz, graphic organizer, it's posted. Materials, copy and paste from your unit plan. Vocabulary, you do have to come up with these. They should be from the Lorax, and you need to give the word and the definition. Multiple intelligence, it's already created in your unit plan. Anticipatory set, this is where you are introducing the skill through the book. You're introducing the skill, you're modeling, you're showing an example. The students are practicing. This could be where they could work in a small group with a partner. Expanding is where they need to be working independently. And then, of course, the closure is where you're going to give your summative so that you will know if this student mastered the skill. If they didn't master the skill, then the teacher needs to know that she needs to go back and reteach. He or she needs to go back and reteach the skill before they move forward. This past week, tonight, the unit plan, I will grade the unit plans last. I believe I'm caught up to the ones that have been submitted, but I will grade and assess the lesson plans first. So if you turn your unit plan in late, it may be a day or two before I get to it, because I want the lesson plans to be assessed first so that you can work on them, because they're due corrected this week. So before you submit your lesson plan, please make sure that every section is relating back to the standard. If you are doing main idea and supporting details, then every section needs to be referring to the main idea and supporting details. If you are doing literal and non-literal and multiple meaning words, that needs to be addressed throughout the lesson plan. You just can't pick part of the standard to teach. You have to teach the entire standard. Let's go back up and look at some of the standards for third grade. Remember, we're using these standards. You should have already selected the standard. I just want to go back over some of them. This one right here is ask and answer questions to determine the understanding of a text, referring explicitly to the text as the basis for answers. This is text evidence. Ask and answer. You're answering questions referring explicitly. Remember, explicitly means you could put your finger on the answer in the text. This lesson plan is great for learning the central message or the moral. And it's always watch for this word and. And means it has two parts. You just can't have the students determine the central message or moral. You have to teach them how to determine it through key details in the text. Some of the lesson plans stopped right here. They're not including the second part that says and. So make sure you're including the entire section. This one I saw a couple of times this week. Describe the characters in a story. Okay, that's all good and fun, but they have done that since kindergarten. You have to make sure that you're aware of the word and explain how their actions contributed to the sequence of events. So if the Lorax was mean, it contributed to a sequence of events because of his actions. If he had acted another way, the story would have gone a different direction. So this one has an and. You have to teach both parts of the standard. This one I saw a lot this week. Determining the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text. Keyword here, determine. The students must determine. Comma, that comma is almost just like an and. Distinguish literal from non-literal language. This is a big one in Dr. Seuss. So they need to be able to determine the meanings of literal words and recognize when something is a non-literal. So make sure you're including all parts of the standard in the lesson plan. This one is refer to parts of a story, drama, poems when writing and speaking about a text. So this one, they are writing or speaking about the text. And when they're writing or speaking, they need to use terms such as scene, chapter, stanza. In the first chapter, the answer was, and then you get the semicolon, describe how each successive part builds on earlier sections. So with third grade, the younger grades do the simple standards, like the first part before the end. Now we're third grade. The texts are more complex. We're teaching more throughout the text with the standards. So this one is distinguish their own point of view from that of the author or those of the characters. So their own point of view, so first they have to recognize the character and their point of view, and then come up with their own point of view, and then talk about whether or not it is the same or different. So if you've noticed the progression of lesson plans that we're going to have in this course, you are going to have to write a second lesson plan. So keep some of those standards in mind. So you turn in the completed one in week 6, and then week 7 you're going to write another lesson plan. And then you're also going to have an interview to do. So you might want to read ahead. Let me go ahead and open that week, because you are going to have to arrange for an interview with a current teacher. So I'll go ahead and open that week so you can go ahead and look at some of the directions for that. So in week 6, you have just the corrected lesson plan and the discussion post. And then in week 7, you're going to have another lesson plan plus a practitioner interview. And the interview has questions, specific questions that you're going to need to ask. So you can go ahead and look at that week. And then week 8 will be kind of easier, because all you have to do is turn in the corrected lesson plan. So this week, when you are looking at the score that you received, please make sure that you are looking for the rubric that I posted along with the score, and that will help you determine what you need to correct. So I am here to answer questions. Please make sure, if you text me or email me, that you are giving me specific questions. Please don't use the comment "I don't understand," because that is so difficult for me to answer. You have to be specific about what you do not understand. If you need an idea for an activity, you can always Google. I always have activities that you can do, but the main thing we need to work on for these lesson plans is making sure that you are teaching the standard that you chose at the top. So if you need to, go back to week 5, download the file that I created so that you can see what can be copied and pasted from the unit plan, and then what you have to create or come up with on your own. Now you should be able to see the link between why you did what you did in the lesson plan and how it fits, what you did in the unit plan and how it fits into a lesson plan. So please be conscious of what you're doing, because it will help you in the next course, EDU 3040. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Please look over the course resources. Let me see where I put that. ESOL file, ESOL standards for instructional plans, up here at the top. You need to select from these. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, I will contact you through email if I have any questions about what you need to do. So thank you, and I will talk to you soon.